Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please, you are welcome. Those who are there, don't go anywhere. If you can call somebody who is not here, try to call. Janma, time won't show. The students, where are you? Where are you, students? Now I enter trap again, have you? Enter Brajabasi trap, una go no. Where are the students? Very good. How is you, Prabhu? Where are the students? Where are the students? Where are the students? Making the whole thing difficult. Wow.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shadakaya Chakshur Onmilitam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Ahang Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Nama Ong Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Charu Swamini Namine Nama Ong Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastata Desha Tarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadha Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so I'm in a different place. So for bandwidth purposes, I'm going to keep my camera off. And you're welcome to do whatever you please. You can have it on or off as you wish. So we start with chapter 9. So let's do this. Okay, so last week I showed you some of the key memory verses and some of the key thematic verses. So so the 9th chapter of the Gita is, for the purposes of understanding and workflow, is divided into these sections. So the first section is the first 3 verses of the chapter. Qualifications and disqualifications on hearing about Krishna. And then the second section is Krishna's inconceivable relationship with the material world. And then Krishna will speak about the devotee and the non-devotee. That's in 11 to 19. And just as he did previously, he's going to compare demigod worshippers and the devotees. If you remember in the previous chapter, Krishna described how the worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent, alpamedasam, and even less intelligent are those that worship the unmanifest. So Krishna will be making that comparison again, and you can see it takes quite a substantial number of verses, so it's an important section. And then you have the glories of worshipping Shri Krishna. And last week we introduced the Bhagavad Gita. I mean this section, this chapter 9, and we and we explained it's the middle chapter and the last text and so on. So we start today then with chapter 9, and I think this is the summary that's in your study manual. So the beginning chapters of Bhagavad Gita describe confidential knowledge of the difference between the soul and the body. Chapter 7 and 8 are more confidential because they describe devotional service, which brings enlightenment in Krishna consciousness. Chapter 9 is most confidential because it describes pure, unalloyed devotional service. In the 8th chapter, Krishna has explained that the Ananya devotee, both pure devotee, surpasses both the path of light and darkness. Now Krishna will explain how to become such an Ananya devotee. The first step is hearing about Krishna. Again, the importance of hearing is constantly repeated from when we started in chapter 7 all the way to chapter 8. All the way to chapter 8. For instance, the very first verse of chapter 1, Krishna describes, he tells Arjuna, Tatshri, no, just hear. The first step is hearing about Krishna. An unenvious person can obtain the most intimate knowledge of the absolute truth by hearing, and can perceive Krishna directly through the process of devotional service. A faithless person, however, must return to the path of birth and death. Krishna explains his inconceivable relationship with the material world in 4:10. So somebody can read the English for text number 1 to 3.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah. Chapter 9, text 1. Translation says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Text 2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Text 3. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, the first thing Srila Prabhupada does in his purport to the first text is again emphasizing the importance of hearing. Material life begins with hearing, we all know that. You minding your own business, you hear something, it leaves an impression in the consciousness, and then you think further about that. You've discussed that in the third or the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pungsa sangat sanjayate kamaha. Sangat kama kroda dhyayato vishayan pungsaha. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Sangat sanjayate. So this is the verse that describes when one contemplates the objects of attachment and one develops attachment. So this is how material life begins. It begins with hearing. And so Prabhupada is describing here how the devotee should hear more and more about the Supreme Lord, then he becomes enlightened. So the more we increase our hearing, the more we becoming enlightened. Shinvanda Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridi Antastohe Abhadrani, Vidhunoti Surutsatam. So there again it describes, because Srila Prabhupada here is speaking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam describes this in the second chapter, how by listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam, giving oral reception to the Bhagavatam, whatever is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed. So this is the material world. And we can also see the opposite of this is true as well. The more we listen to materialistic news, the more we engage unnecessarily with social media, the more we listen to music, TV shows that are materialistic, we become materialistic again. Remember, what is it? Liberation by sound. There's that verse from the Anashakta Vritti, right? The liberation by sound. This is what the Vedas are describing. Liberation by sound. One can be liberated just by materials, by sound. Even the sound in the mode of goodness can elevate one. Sound in the mode of ignorance can also degrade one. So the hearing is important. It's been, this is like probably the fifth time now that Srila Prabhupada is bringing this important thing of hearing the messages of the Supreme Lord. And we've discussed at length about this. And Prabhupada says this enlightenment cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. So there's anyway. So when we associate with materialists, then our consciousness become material. We associate with devotees, our consciousness become devotees. Just on the basis of sound, of hearing. Prabhupada writes also later on, he says, now this verse has specific significance. The words idam jnanam, this knowledge, refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is thus cleared of material contamination, one can understand the signs of Krishna. Simply to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. That may be the beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body. So this is one of the very common arguments that Srila Prabhupada makes here in the Bhagavad Gita in regard to the Mayavadis. The Mayavadis' great chant, just as we have our great chant, they have Mahakavya, is Ahang Brahmasmi, I am spirit. That's the utter chant, that's the utterant chants of the Mayavadis, and I'm talking about serious practicing Mayavadis. And so Prabhupada says that is not enough, because Ahang Brahmasmi means I am spirit soul. So Prabhupada is saying that is not enough. You've done the nectar of instruction, you may have heard how Srila Prabhupada describes how the Mayavadi philosophers or the Mayavadi practitioners, they hit a wall. So they practice for thousands of years, and then they get their liberation into the Brahma Jyoti, and they, in inverted commas, merge. Of course, we know you can't merge with the Brahma Jyoti, but they become suspended in the Brahma Jyoti, and so they experience that ecstasy emanating from the Brahma Jyoti. And Prabhupada describes that because human beings are by nature active, we are social beings. Human beings are social beings, we are active beings. And you can see this also with the Goswamis. Even though they spent a lot of their time studying and writing books, but they still engaged with the public in Vrindavan, to the point that this is expressed also in that song, Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghu Yugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. One of the verses that describes how they are friends to all living beings. And in some of their biographies, it's described how they would stop by with neighbors and ask them how they were doing, and they would give them Ayurvedic advice if somebody was sick. They would give them Ayurvedic advice if somebody needed advice on how to grow crops. They would give them advice on how to, and they were Babajis. So the nature of Vaishnavism is not exclusion from society, but it's active engagement in society in an intelligent way. So Prabhupada is saying this is not enough. The Mayavadis understanding that I'm not spirit is not enough. So when they get merged or liberated into the Brahma Jyoti, at some point they want to leave and join society. We also have this, if you are sick for a long time and you're alone. I mean, we know even with COVID how people were so restless because they couldn't do much. You were in a confined space. You wanted to go out there, be with your friends, be with the devotees, whatever. So this is the nature. And so at some point they get agitated, and then they come to the material world. And when they take birth in the material world, they begin philanthropic work. You see a lot of the famous swamis in India, I won't mention any names, on YouTube and all these places. They are very powerful philanthropists. Powerful philanthropists. They run institutions that amount to hundreds and millions of dollars. They provide health, education across the world. And clearly you can see some of these individuals that they are not ordinary living beings, even though as devotees we just criticize them just like that, and justly, because many of them they criticize Krishna. But many of them you can tell these are like real sadhus, real sadhus. But they engaged in philanthropic work. So this is what Prabhupada is saying. It's not enough. He says, Prabhupada says, that may be the beginning of spiritual realization, but one should recognize the difference between the activities of the body and the activities of spirit, of one who understands he's not the body. So, and this is also an important distinction that devotees also need to understand, that even though so this is the point that Prabhupada is making, that all these philanthropic work is not spiritual, it's material, but they mistakenly think that it's spiritual. Just like with us, some of the activities that we perform, like Food for Life, we give prasadam, and we know many of the people that take prasadam, some some respect it, many don't respect it, they just see it as food. We should understand that there's the core of Krishna consciousness. Giving out food, giving education programs to attract people is not the core. The core is giving pure Krishna consciousness. All these other stuff are just maybe decorations or just philanthropic work, because Food for Life started exactly on the premise of Prabhupada seeing people starving or young children starving, and he gave them. So a distinction should be made, Prabhupada says, between spiritual activities of one who understands that he is not the body and material activities. The Sanskrit word anasuyave in this verse is also very significant. Generally, the commentators, even if they are highly scholarly, they are envious of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita very inaccurately, because they are envious of Krishna. Their commentaries are useless. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita or give perfect knowledge of Krishna if he is envious. One who criticizes the character of Krishna without knowing him is a fool. So such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. For one who understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the pure and transcendental personalities, these chapters will be very helpful. So now when we go to the Sanskrit and we look at the word anusuvati, right? The non-envious. And Krishna has said several times on the Gita here that I'm explaining this Bhagavad Gita to you, Arjuna, because you are my friend, but also because you are non-envious. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmari Asayatu Anvayari Tiratascha Bikiratswarat Tenne Brahmari Dayadika Vayamuhyante Yatsuraya Tejo Varim Ridham Yatha Vinimayo Yata Trisarga Amrisa Damna Swena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. So this is the opening verse of the Shrimad Bhagavatam, and this verse and the next verse are spoken by the author of the Shrimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva himself. And on here, he's offering his obeisances to the Supreme Lord. And he says some wonderful things. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? And who's Vasudev? Krishna. So anyway, this is an interesting discussion because excuse me. Oh Krishna. Because Jiva Goswami, he in his Sandarbhas, in his Sat Sandarbhas, he establishes the Shrimad Bhagavatam as the primary pramana, as the primary evidence for Vaishnavas. And I mentioned this previously, that as Vaishnavas, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas specifically, our Shastras are not Manu Sanghita, our Shastras are not any other Shastras, but the Shrimad Bhagavatam is our main point of reference, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, our main point of reference, Bhagavad Gita as it is, our main point of reference. Any book that Prabhupada didn't give us as the foundation of our Krishna consciousness, we may use it for preaching and for understanding, but it is not a book that as Vaishnavas we quote from, right? So anyway, and then the next verse, right? Is it the next verse? Is it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it is. Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmataranam satam vedyam vastavam atra shiva tapatrayon mulanam Shrimad Bhagavata Mahamune Kritikimba para Ishvaraha Sadyo Ridhai Avarudate Trakritibi Shushubitat Kshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within the heart. So in this text here, there's that verse, not only attentively and submissively hearing, that the hearing is there, but also there's the word nirmataranam, which means non-envious. So envy manifests itself in different ways, right? Envy is not envy only of other persons, but it's envy of God. And I gave a Sunday class when I was in Mediair, and I spoke about the 5 different types of dharmas. Cheating religion, apadharmas, 5 types of cheating religion. Apadharma, Chalodharma, and so on. And all of these are envious religions. I won't go into the details, but you have, for instance, religions where a priest will demand money from the congregation. Like, for instance, you have in the United States, it's a big thing, where one of the famous, I don't know what you call them, pastor, reverends, many of them, even in West Africa, it's a lot of this. The pastors, they own very expensive stuff. They wear expensive suits. They fly in private jets, live in mansions, and they have a lot of expensive stuff. And their philosophy is that I am the embodiment of God's grace. Because I'm wealthy and you see me wealthy, I'm the embodiment of God's grace. If you don't give your donation, how can God's glory be there? But, and you see many of them, they misuse that money. It's all well and good if you're doing that and using the money properly, but they're misusing the money. They run around with other people's wives and so on and so on. That's one type of religion. And you have other types of religion where it's mostly flowery words, like Buddhism, for instance. It speaks very nicely. You know, what are those things now? The Eightfold Noble Paths, the four, what is it called? Anyway, you know, those things that the philosophy of Buddhism, it speaks very nicely, you know, work proper. It basically gives the mode of goodness, but it doesn't speak anything about God. It's cheating religion, and it's an embodiment of envy. And usually people run into difficulty in the wrong run. We've also seen it in our movement. There was a Swami in India, ISKCON Swami in India, who collected money, hundreds and thousands of dollars, and he would go to India to spend, I mean, he would go to the US to spend it. There's photographs, pictures of him going to expensive boutique stores in the US, buying expensive items, expensive things, using the congregation's money. So this is and of course it didn't end well. This is an expression of envy. And also we could also extend it to our own self as well. When we have deities in the temple, and during darshan time, devotees drag their legs, they come there late. It's envy. You see devotees, instead of offering proper dandavats, they offer what we jokingly call in ISKCON frog dandavats, right? Like if you're chanting your japa sitting cross-legged, and then Purushottam Prabhu opens Prabhupada's curtain. It's too much to stand up and do a proper bow. So you just do a frog. So you just touch your head to that's not proper. That's not that type of dandavat is not in the shastra. There's two types. The one where you're on your knees, you touch your knees, both your knees to the floor, your elbows to the floor, your forehead to the floor. That's called a half a dandavat. The full one is, of course, when you go, like a dandavat, like a stick. But most of us don't do that. It's becoming a culture that we don't do these things. Darshan is just darshan. You just walk in there, and as the Govindam prayers is coming to an end, you just walk in there. Devotees giving class, you come in late, and you have really no excuse to coming late. And this is envy. This is the manifestation of envy. And also, if we also extend it to our good selves here, that even though in spite of us discussing so many times the protocols and how people should also not be late, still people are late. We've missed 2 classes now. Last Saturday we didn't have class. Yesterday we didn't have class, right? If you really think about it, if this was Bhakti Damodar Maharaj was going to speak, I can guarantee you this would not have happened. Devotees will be on time, everything will be, cameras will be on, devotees follow protocols proper. But because our mind makes the distinction between Brajbasi and my Guru Maharaj, then you have this type of mindset. It's a Kanishta mindset. And I've spoken about it before, how and this is mentioned in the Act of Instruction, how a disciple or somebody who sees only their guru and worships him and doesn't see the other devotees. There's a Kanish that's mentioned there in Prabhupada. So this is a manifestation of envy. And as Vaishnavas, we should be careful, because if you are asked something and you make a promise to do something and then you break it, it's an aparad. So this is the nature of envy. This is some of the different manifestations of envy in the material world. Or I know I used to have this especially when I was younger, with my peers, because we were in competition about who knows many verses, who knows the Shastra. When somebody who I considered competition in inverted commas in an ashram, another brahmachari, gave class, I would basically switch off and just listen to and wait for the end of the class. Just listen to points that I can attack him, right? And then when question and answer session come, we would all raise our hands and say, what is it? It's healthy in one way to keep each other spiritually fit. But in another way, it's envy, because you're thinking this person knows more than I do, or is more eloquent than I do, or he gave a nice class. So that envy, this is the manifestations of envy. So we should be able to see these things in ourselves and be careful that we don't commit aparad to the Shastra, to the process of Krishna consciousness, and to the other Vaishnavas. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the king of education. The most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. This chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the king of education because it is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Among the principal philosophers in India are Gautam, Kanada, Kapila, Yagyavaka, Sandilya, and Vaishnana. And finally, there's Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Sutra. I gave a whole presentation previously about the Vedas, how the Vedas are broken down, the four Vedas, Sama, Rig Veda, and so on, and each division of all of these, the Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and so forth, made the distinction between the Shrutis and the Smritis. We broke down the Smritis into different parts, the Pancharatra and so on. And then we also went on to speak about the Saddarshan, the 6 views or the 6 ways of seeing the world in Indian philosophy. And so Prabhupada has mentioned the philosophers of each of these 6 views. And that is Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Yoga, Sankhya, Yoga, Uttara Mimamsa, and Purva Mimamsa. So those are the 6. We've discussed it before. And then the Vedanta Sutra. So there is no dearth of knowledge in the field of philosophy or transcendental knowledge. Now the Lord says that this 9th chapter is the king of all such knowledge, the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. It is the most confidential because of transcendental knowledge. Wait. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. Prabhupada said this in the previous verse, that knowledge of the spirit soul, the difference between matter and spirit, is not enough, but it has to culminate in devotional service. Again, Prabhupada is using that argument again. As I said, if you pay attention to Srila Prabhupada's purport, you'll see how Srila Prabhupada is always expressing something that is of great significance if we pay attention. Everything in Prabhupada's purport, every word. And I mean, when we started, I gave this whole presentation about Bhaktivedanta purports and how Bhaktivedanta purports are our Shastra, and how Bhaktivedanta purports, Srila Prabhupada's purports, are the essence, a culmination, just as he says there in the purports that this 9th chapter is the essence, the culmination of all knowledge, the essence, and so also is the Bhaktivedanta purports, are the Bhaktivedanta purports. So we take them as seriously as we take Krishna's words. So Prabhupada is making some strong arguments here, again, in regard to Mayavad philosophy. Same argument. Generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. As far as ordinary education is concerned, people are involved with so many departments: politics, sociology, physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, engineering, etc. There are so many departments of knowledge all over the world and many huge universities. But there is unfortunately no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet the soul is the most important part of the body. Without the presence of the soul has no value. Still, people are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. So we see this in the modern world, that the world has become much more materialistic than it used to be, let's say, in Chaitanya Prema Prabhu's and my generation. It's quite different now. It's completely materialistic. And with the help of AI, some things are easy. Things have become easy. Thinking has become easy. So I know some devotees also, they use ChatGPT to prepare their Sunday classes, Bhagavatam classes. So, I mean, this is the influence of materialistic knowledge. It increases the bodily fever if it's not done properly. Some devotees are very expert. They can use social media for proper, or the sound, they can use sound for material sound for preaching and for elevation. So we have to be careful who we associate with. Nowadays, I call them Kali Yuga Brahmanas, the list of people that Prabhupada is listed here. Your scientists, your scholars, these are your Kali Yuga Brahmanas. In the past, people used to go to Brahmanas to ask for direction and advice. They used to take lesson from them. The same principle is there, because human nature doesn't disappear. It just transmuted into something else. Right? So, yeah, that's that anyway. So Prabhupada says, again, paying attention to Prabhupada's fight against Mayavad philosophy. That is confidential part of knowledge. Simply knowing that the spirit soul, let's go down. Sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body, and that when the body is finished or one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. But actually, this is not a fact. How can the soul, which is so active within this body, be inactive after liberation from the body? It is always active. If it is eternal, then it is eternally active. And its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge. These activities of the spirit soul are therefore indicated here as constituting the king of knowledge, the most confidential part of knowledge. Again, Prabhupada is making an argument against Mayavad philosophy here. He says, well, some people say that actually Prabhupada makes an argument, but it's a twofold argument. So here he says that sometimes people are under the impression that the soul is different from the body, and when the body is diminished or one is liberated from the body, the soul remains in a void and becomes impersonal. So that's the Buddhist and the Mayavad philosophy. And in a previous presentation, I gave an overview of what this means. I spoke about the two types of impersonalism, right? I spoke about the Vivartavada and Parinamvada. Basically, the conclusions based of these two philosophies are the same. These are two prominent philosophies when we speak about Mayavad philosophy in this strictest sense. And all of them say that you are God, I'm God, everybody's God. I gave the example of if you have, 100 nairas and you divide 100 nairas, you give 1 naira to 100 people, you don't have anything left with you, right? So in the same way, there was Brahman, or there was God, and God became many, and he manifested himself into the material world. So now there's no more God, but the material world is God. I mean, I spoke about this previously, so I won't repeat it. And then I gave those two types of impersonal philosophy, and I spoke about the different types of Buddhism, Buddhist philosophies, and how Buddhism is voiding. Nirvana literally means to blow. It just means to blow. So the whole idea is that liberation means everything stops existing. Exactly what Prabhupada is saying. And Prabhupada is making an argument that how can something that is eternally active suddenly become inactive? It doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any logic that something that is eternally active because even in this body we are active and we are doing something. When we are sleeping, we are active. Now suddenly after liberation, everything becomes inactive. So this is Prabhupada's argument here. So you can see Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada's argument against Mayavad philosophy. And Prabhupada writes, this knowledge is the purest form of activity of all activities as explained in the... This is a very, very long purport here. This knowledge is the purest form of all activities explained in the Vedic literature. In the Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. And I also gave you an overview of this, taking from the Nectar of Devotion. And I think I gave some diagram on the manifestation of sin, from how does the cycle of sin, the more you do something, the more you're inclined to do it. And the more you do it again, that the inclination increases. And not only do you increase the inclination to do something, right, but you also hurt your body. Let's say if somebody is an alcoholic, right? On one hand, they're damaging their body with alcohol. On the other side, you have the psychological reaction to that, which is a predisposition. And so not only are you hurting the body, but you're hurting the mind, because the desire to drink becomes more and more. And so it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. And because of this addiction, one has to, if one dies, then one has to continue on like this in the next life. And I gave the different types of the different stages, the seed form and so on. This you'll do in the Nectar of Devotion. So this is what Prabhupada is speaking about. He says, for instance, when the seed of a particular tree is sown, the tree does not appear immediately, right, to grow. It takes So it was aprarabdha karma and prarabdha karma. So it takes some time. It is first a small sprouting plant, then it assumes the form of a tree, then it flowers and bears fruit. And when it is complete, the flowers and fruits are enjoyed by the person who have sown the seed of the tree. So you can tell, you can see just by this statement that here, that whatever position that we find ourselves in, it's our own fault. It's our own fault. So we see, we saw what we saw what we reap what we sow. And so in the same way, if we develop certain habits in our Krishna consciousness in terms of, let's say, not attending Mangalati or not chanting in the association of devotees, and as Prabhupada given instruction, and many devotees don't follow this instruction, Prabhupada said every devotee should read at least for an hour each day. So then this lack of following it weakens us. It becomes a habit, and habits become the map to our next birth. So when we find ourselves, of course, we have to be very careful when we speak about these things in public. People will not understand. But when we speak amongst the Vaishnavas, we know that whatever position we find ourselves, it's our own fault. You can't blame your parents. You can't blame the temple president. You can't blame your sister. It's your creation. And Prabhupada says, a person who has completely ended the reactions of all sinful activities by Krishna consciousness, right? What is that verse? Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. How does it start? Yeah. So by engaging in Krishna consciousness, Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam Tat Paradvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. Krishna consciousness is the means, but it is the goal, but it also the means of purification. And Prabhupada says here, it is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect. Okay, maybe let's finish that first and untitle. In other words, those who are actually engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord are already freed from all reactions. This statement is confirmed in Padma Purana. This is what I was just been describing anyway. It is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. This direct result is actually perceived, and when we have practical experience that any person who is chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in course of chanting without offenses, feels some transcendental pleasure and very quickly becomes purified of all material contamination. This is actually seen further if one engages not only in hearing, but in trying to broadcast the message of devotional service as well. So Prabhupada has added an extra dimension there, preaching. Or if he engages himself in helping the missionary activities of Krishna consciousness, he gradually feels spiritual progress. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend on any kind of previous education or qualification. The method itself is so pure that by simply engaging it, one becomes pure. So Prabhupada is gone on and begins to describe the susukam part. It's joyfully performed. It's now service is joyfully. So, and this is also confirmed in the Nectar of Devotion, where Rupa Goswami uses happiness as a measuring criteria. Happiness as a measuring criteria. So it means that the happier you are in Krishna consciousness, then you are making spiritual progress. The less happier you are, then something is wrong. In other words, if you are not happy in Krishna consciousness, there is an issue with practice. There is nobody who is actually practicing proper and is not happy. And happiness is not jumping up and down and, I'm happy. No, we're talking about happiness that is coming directly from the transcendental world, right? So Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion uses this criteria, and then you can see Prabhupada is also using the same criteria. That if one is happy in Krishna consciousness, that means that he's realized this knowledge. So in the same way, in the Nectar of Devotion, beginning with Subhada and Subhada and Klesha Agni, that when one begins to practice Krishna consciousness, two things happen. The first one is Klesha Agni. By definition, if one is properly applying the process of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, then the bad habits begin to disappear. All the addictions, all the negative mindset begins to disappear if one is practicing properly. And we can see this. Almost all of us, when we join, there's an ecstasy that we experience when you join in Krishna consciousness, right? It's so blissful that we want to tell everybody about it. But in due course of time, because we become inattentive, and from this inattentiveness, many offenses come, and then that joy disappears, and we have to work harder for it, right? And then the second part is subhada, when not only the negative qualities in the practitioner disappear, but good qualities increase. Qualities of the Vaishnava that we spoke about, the 26 qualities of the Vaishnavas, then begin to manifest itself. So it means that the lack of manifestation of all of these qualities, or qualities of like depression and unhappiness, moroseness, Krishna speaks about this also when he speaks about the modes. This is an influence of the mode of ignorance, and it shows that there is an issue with practice of our Krishna consciousness. So this is what Prabhupada is saying here, that happiness is an indication that one is making spiritual progress. The process, Prabhupada says, the process of devotional service is a very happy one. Sukham. Why? Devotional service consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So one can simply hear the chanting of the glories of the Lord, or can attend philosophical lectures on transcendental knowledge given by authorized acharyas. Simply by sitting, one can learn. Then one can eat the remnants of the foods offered to God, nice palatable dishes. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One who executes devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. Or one can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. The Lord says, Patram pushpam palam toyam. He is ready to accept from the devotee any kind of offering. So Prabhupada goes on like that. As will be seen in Bhagavad Gita, actual devotional service begins after liberation. So this is an important point of discussion. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasochati Nakangshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Nametvestushtina Priyaha. It's a very important verse, because this verse, and Prabhupada is saying here, he's saying, technically speaking, pure devotional service begins on the liberated platform, which means that unless one is liberated, i.e., one is not happy in Krishna consciousness and so on, what we've been speaking about, one is not technically not engaged in devotional service. It's a very interesting point. And you've also heard devotees make reference to the idea that because of this, because of our lack of qualification, because of our inattentiveness, so therefore we do not have the capacity, just as Krishna gave Arjuna the Daivim Chakshush, right? He gave him divine vision. We don't have the divine vision to see Krishna. So therefore, Krishna manifests himself as Naranarayan. You've heard this before, some devotees saying this, that. So when we're doing our offering to the deities, we are not actually offering directly to Krishna, but to Lakshmi Narayan, because we don't have the adhikar, the qualification to see Krishna. Radharani and the gopis pray in the absence of Krishna. Radharani says, I don't have love for Krishna. And her girlfriend asks, what do you mean? You are the best lover of Krishna. And she says, no, I don't. I don't have love for Krishna, because if I had love for Krishna, I would be dead by now. How is it possible for one to live without their beloved? It is not possible. But because I'm living without my beloved, I do not have love for my beloved Krishna. And she starts crying. Right? She starts crying. This is pure devotional service. When we compare that to our own situation, I mentioned this many times, that Bhagavatam class starts at 8:45. We come in there at 9 o'clock. We don't like what the speaker is saying. We don't like his style of presentation. We don't like his accent or whatever. We don't like the way he's dressed or whatever it is. We don't like his children. Then we don't, we go there, we just sit for 10 minutes and we stand up and we walk away. We start chanting outside while Bhagavatam is going on. And there's no reason to be chanting outside. Right? So this shows that we still have quite a bit of work to do. That technically speaking, as Prabhupada is saying, we are not actually engaging in devotional service. It's Mishra Bhakti, it's mixed. And I mentioned this, I quoted from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, how Kapila Dev speaks about the different types of mixed devotional service and so on. As will be seen in Bhagavad Gita, actual devotional service begins after liberation. After one is liberated, when one is liberated in the Brahman position, Brahma Bhuta, one's devotional service begins. Sma samaveshu bhuteshu mat bhaktim labate param. No one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by executing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or any other yoga independently. By these yogic methods, one may make a little progress towards Bhakti Yoga, but without coming to the stage of devotional service, i.e., on the Brahma Buddha platform, one cannot understand what is the personality of Godhead. Because if we really understood, if we really knew who Krishna was, our attitude would be different. If we really knew who the devotees of Krishna were, in spite of the differences, in spite of the different challenges, if we really knew who they were, we would be appreciative. If we understood how what Chaitanya Prema Prabhu is doing is so rare nowadays in ISKCON that it's a privilege. Then our attitude would be different, right? But because we're inattentive, we think that Chaitanya Prema Prabhu will always be there. We think that the Bhakti Sastri online class will always be there, right? But no, time is moving on. Next thing you know, Raghupati will be 20 years old. Chaitanya Prema Prabhu will be with Krishna in the forests of Vrindavan. It's like, it's the madness that we have. If you've ever, you've been young. We've all had the intoxication of youth that we think will live forever. You bow down, you stand up. You jump high. It's like, it's insane how youthfulness is intoxicating, right? And then you hit your 40s and things start slowing down, and you hit your 50s and and then your 60s, and your reality is a little different. You realize the truth that youthfulness it's fleeting, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't see it. But when you're like older, only you see it. So unless this mindset changes, then we are still performing Mishra Bhakti. That's what Prabhupada's own words again. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the I lost my place. Where is it? Oh, Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by executing the process of devotional service, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from self-realized souls, then he can understand the signs of Krishna or the signs of God. Evam prasanamana so Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, then one can understand what God is. And again, Prabhupada is repeating himself, indicating to us that what we are actually practicing is technically not devotional service. Some devotees would say it's karma mishra bhakta, it's karma yoga. Especially in West Africa, devotees, they are very honest about things. They'll call it karma yoga, and some people have a problem with it, right? But this is what Prabhupada is saying. This is what Prabhupada is saying. Devotional service, technically speaking, is a lot more different than what we think it is. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, then one can understand what God is. Thus, the process of devotional service of Krishna consciousness is the king of all education and the king of all confidential knowledge. It is the purest form of religion, and it can be executed joyfully without difficulty. Therefore, one should adopt it. Now, I'm spending a lot of time on these verses because, generally speaking, when Prabhupada is, you can see the purport is very long. When the purports are very long like this, there's a lot of juice in it. And I didn't want to just gloss over it. There's some stuff that I didn't touch in detail that you'll have to do on your own, but I just picked out some important stuff. So we'll take a break, and then when we come back from the break, we will finish off with this section and begin at least one or two texts of the next section. Or maybe we'll see if there are any questions that are related to text 1 and 2 as we've been describing. It is now 12:40 my time. We will see you at 5 minutes before 1 o'clock. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So that's a 15-minute break.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, what's going on? No sound, nothing. What's going on?
We are on a 15 minutes break. We are on break. You can go and urinate. You can go and eat something fast. You can iron your clothes. You can do something for yourself for the next 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Hare
sir.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhu, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu Chittaya Brahma, our great teacher, Hare Krishna.
Pranam, so glorious to you. Okay. I want to use this opportunity to appeal to you and beg you people to at least take the attendance very seriously. We have to start from the beginning. Actually, what Prabhu is demanding for is not too much. It is the standard. You have to be there before the teacher comes. So he's forcing us to practice that discipline. But some of us don't like it. But this is a global devotee? Understand? If we conduct ourselves very well, it will talk about us in other places, how serious we are. And for now, he's even arranging for some global devotee to come and take us a seminar on conflict resolution, which is an additional stuff. You see? So please let us not discourage him by our nonchalant African attitude. Understand? So we are begging you. Like this morning, I was in anxiety. That's why I was calling here and there. Only 3 people were there at the beginning. 2 people first, then 3rd person joined. There was no Isana Goranga, there was no Anantajit, there was no Balabhadra before Balabhadra came. Then there was no Ato call, looking for them. Understand? So we want to appeal to you to make it that schedule yourself in a way that, these 2 hours should be dedicated for the Sastri study. It's a discipline. Understand? It's a discipline. I was talking to Prana Prayer Mataji also, that sometimes when the Guru comes, in the name of, oh, I'm rendering direct service to the Guru, I'm too busy. No, that's not how to do it. The Guru himself wants you to do Bhakti Sastri. So if you are doing Bhakti Sastri and the time comes, say, Gurudev, this is the time for Bhakti Sastri. So I will do this, then when it's time, I will go and finish up, then I will come back to continue. He will be very happy. But you'll be there in the name of serving the Guru. The Bhakti Sastri program is going on. That means it's not important. If he has gotten a better, more important service like that, after that, he goes to kitchen. Now, oh, I'm cooking for the deities. I'm want to do galan for things that other people can do also within that time. Arrange in a way that those other people do those things while you come and concentrate on the Sastri study stuff. So let us learn how to manage our times. We love everybody to, finish with us. We don't want to encourage some people to drop out and wait for next session. Maybe when that time they'll be freer to attend. We don't want those kind of things. But if your attendance is so epileptic, anytime you like, you come. Anytime you like, you go. Anytime you like, you come. Anytime you like, you go. That means we don't know the value of what we are doing. You see? So let us not give wrong impression about ourselves, and let us not demotivate the teachers who have sacrificed to come and associate, give us their association. Let us encourage them by being consistent with attendance. Prabhujis and Matajis, we are begging you on behalf of the management of this academy and also on behalf of other students, those who are consistent. So thank you very much. You have about 7 minutes more, 6 or 7 minutes more for your break. Please go and enjoy your break. Hare Krishna. We want you to cooperate. We love you so much and we don't want to offend ourselves. Okay. Just to break our
This attendance,
this attendance is very encouraging. So you should keep it up. Huh? Then those who are not there, we drag them back inside. So that let us continue this transcendental association. Prabhu.
Thank you, Babu, for encouragement.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. But you should wear shirt before the time. Oh.
No, I will see it now. I will feel with the
Uh-huh.
rest of the tongue at the same time.
You have to wear shirt before the class continues. So.
Everything I rush. As I dey finish and now I finish the class, my tempo I dey go straight. So just dey finish our Ekadasi now. Fasting.
Go and break it very well now before you come.
I pray toilet go come, abeg make I wait small. I don put small thing for mouth.
Then do sharp now.
I dey rush now.
The breaking time at fast. The breaking time at fast.
No,
Continue.
it remains about
Continue. Tomorrow you break. The breaking time at fast. Continue.
Want to kill the soul?
the soul cannot be killed.
Prabhu, ask him if you want to kill the soul. Ask him if you want to kill the soul.
I will kill the
The
body.
soul will evolve to another body.
Hey.
For the soul, there is neither birth nor death. No, having ever comes to be.
Prabhuji, I know the soul cannot be killed, but the
The
body
killer
can
of the
be
soul,
killed. The flesh can be buried. The flesh can be buried.
The killer of the soul, don't even know the killer of the soul, they hear am.
Killer of the soul means to be involved in sinful activities. That is the killer of the soul.
Yes. That's the killer of the soul. But aside that, the soul cannot be killed. It's the body that can be killed.
Don't kill the body unnecessarily without not finishing the vision service.
To engage the body in gratification, that is the killer of the soul. You are fulfilling your soul all these years now. Now you get a opportunity to bring it back to life and you are dragging your feet. You don't love yourself.
How many minutes now, Babuji?
It remains 2 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
Olodara, plenty Yoruba people here now. You get why Yoruba devoted, I Mama tell you. There's every morning you go restaurant and go backside. They get where they keep seat for them.
Wow. I think we will try work from lecture to lecture, from lecture to temple. This content was so designed to take every time from you. One minute more. What will happen? Okay. Back. Oh Lord. Really see economy.
Somebody there? Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
I thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
The most confidential knowledge is pure devotional service to Krishna, which consists of the ninefold activities. What are the ninefold activities? It is practical science. What are the ninefold activities that Prabhupada mentions?
By what you mean? Networks of devotion service?
Yes. What are the ninefold activities?
Yeah. Chanting, worshiping. I see.
Okay.
Kirtan,
Anybody get?
dancing. Chanting.
Hearing.
Kirtan.
Okay, Bhakta Arthur, can you list them?
One,
It's
hearing.
hearing.
2, chanting.
Okay.
3, going for Sankirtan.
Going for Sankirtan? Is that there?
Dancing. Dancing.
What is very obvious, what is becoming very obvious is that you all don't read the purport.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
You all don't read the purports because I mentioned previously how the study is gonna go. That I'm going to bring out the essence in each of the purports, but I'm not going to read the whole purport with you. That you should read the purport by yourself. This is study. I quoted that verse. Adyasate chayo imang dharmyam samvadao abayu. Gyanaya gyenatena ham ishtasham iti me matihi. That the study of Shastra is devotional service. Krishna says it himself. So when we read and study the Shastra, and by Shastra I'm including Srila Prabhupada's purport, then we'll get the benefit of it. Prabhupada has made this point, and studying in the association of devotees and all of those. But if you don't study the purports, and if you're just waiting just for the end of the course, because you've got so many other things to do, then it won't work. And the amazing thing about this is that I read these with you. When I was explaining chapter 1, I actually read these with you because they are right there in the purport. Right there in the purport. If you go to text number 1, what paragraph is it? 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph. Prabhupada says, now this first verse has specific significance. The words idam jnanam, this knowledge, refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 different activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping, praying, obeying, maintaining friendship, and surrendering everything. By the practice of these 9 elements of devotional service, one is elevated to to spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. It's right there. Such knowledge can be understood by a non-envious person who hears about Krishna in the association of devotees. Again, the theme that we've been carrying since I started this session, which is not in your theme book, but I'm carrying it nevertheless, is that of association. You'll see how Prabhupada is repeatedly emphasizing association. A devotee who tries to assimilate such potent discussions will make advancement. And there again, assimilate potent discussions. We are sitting here, we are trying to understand Krishna, discuss Krishna. And unless we assimilate, we internalize these teachings, then it just becomes theory. Coming to class becomes just like any other. And an interesting thing is you'll find though that when people, so not everybody, but of course, some devotees, when there's a course on how to make money or some course in the material world, the enthusiasm is incredible. That they'll be the first person there, they'll listen attentively, drop anything that's in the mind and listen attentively because they see the benefit of what they're doing. But then they come to a Bhagavatam class. They think, oh, okay, it's Balabhadra. I know him. Giving Bhagavatam class, no big deal. So you see the dichotomy in terms of mindset. And so it just becomes theory. So the whole point of Krishna consciousness is application. We internalize what we're discussing. And we all know this, that the only way you can internalize anything, the only way one develops a habit is if you do things repeatedly. I mean, for instance, I think in the last class, I emphasized the importance of not just because it seems to me some of you only come here it seems to me that some of you only engage with Bhagavad Gita when it's time for class. This is the sense that I'm getting, that some of you are just you engage with the Shastra, just with the Bhakti Sastri material only when you are maybe writing exams or you're here. But that's not really the point. In your themes, to help students memorize and recall the essential knowledge of the Bhakti Shastras, to deepen student understanding of the theology of the Bhakti Shastra, to help the students personally apply the teachings of the Bhakti Shastras in their lives. So when I was doing this Bhakti Shastri with the old one, the VTE with Rasamandala Prabhu, who is really the father of this Bhakti Shastri course in terms of organization and putting it together effectively. One second. So anyway, so when I was doing this, the course with Rasamandala Prabhu years ago, I learned something. I think it's still here. I don't know if it's still here. About when one, in education circles, there are three things. There is, what is it? There's value, there's skills. What's the other one? Anyway, I forget. So there's knowledge, values, and skills.
Knowledge, skills, and values.
Yes, knowledge, skills, and values. Thank you, Prabhu. Knowledge, skills, and values. That when you attend a course, whatever course it is, it may be a material course, you attend it with the idea of deriving value from the course. So the course has some value to you, your life, your beliefs, whatever, right? So this is why you do the course. It'll add some value to your life. And the constant application of this theory, this knowledge, it becomes a skill. Like a university students graduate, maybe as an engineer, and they go into the field. What they have is theory, but as they get to work with senior engineers and learn the art, then it becomes skill. They become skillful at their vocation, and then they become expert even, right? And the value that what they were doing increases more and more. So by extension, it means if somebody sees a value in a cause, then they will apply what they're learning. And by the application of this learning, they get the skills, and all the other stuff that comes with it, right? We discussed this, that you have to engage with the Shastra on a daily basis for proper understanding. And an interesting thing that was agreed at the end of what I'm trying to do here is that I'm just trying to show you how, anyway, so was agreed last week that in order for us to engage more with the Shastra, some of you, I don't remember who it was, but I don't know if I should say promised, or they said they will start a group where these discussions can go on if people have questions during the day or whatever, and then we can engage with it this way. It's just like with the deities. Some people go, in the morning, they have darshan of the deities, and that's it for the day. That's it. But that's not the purpose of darshan. You go there, you have darshan of the deities, and throughout the day you meditate on the deities. What are they wearing? What are they decorated like? You keep your mind engaged this way. This is where strength comes in. But if you just go there to just tick the box, I was there for Mangala, I was there for greetings, then it won't work in the same way. So unless one shows some qualities, certain qualities, then these things will not, they will not work. I mean, this was agreed, and it never materialized. And like I said, from my observation of not everybody here, but some of the students, it just clearly seems to me that you don't engage with the Shastra. And yeah, it's unfortunate, honestly. So yeah, so the goal is to deepen your understanding of the theology of the Bhakti Shastra, personally apply the teachings in our lives, effectively preach Krishna consciousness, understand and appreciate the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, apply the principles of the Bhakti Shastra with Vaishnava integrity. We've discussed this at various points. The different schools or the different paradigms when it comes to any issue. For instance, we spoke about the female guru issue, and we didn't take any sides. We looked at both sides. We didn't go extensively. Both sides have their views. They quote the Shastra. We look at them with integrity, with the idea of understanding and appropriate consideration of candidate, time, and country, and so on and so on. And then text number 2, knowledge of pure bhakti is the king of education because it is the essence of all knowledge derived from the study of the Vedas and different kinds of philosophy. Devotional service is the perfection of religion because one can practically perceive how he is making spiritual progress. And what's one way that I discussed that one can perceive how one is making spiritual progress? What is one way that and Prabhupada is discussed in quite a bit in his purports? I gave several examples. How can one perceive that one is making spiritual progress? Just based on the discussions that we've just had.
To understand the difference between the body and the soul.
What's that?
If I want to realize the differences between the body and the soul.
Remember, Prabhupada said that's not enough. He actually said it 3 times. That's not enough. Knowing the difference between spirit and matter is not enough. There is an ingredient that's essential there. Purushottam Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu. Yeah. Because when one is happy within,
Very good.
happiness within.
Very good. Very good. You're paying attention. Yes. The more one becomes happy, that's an indication of spiritual advancement. And happiness is not like, pretension, jumping up and down or going and laughing. I mean, that's good. But we're speaking about happiness that's really coming from the soul. Yes, thank you. It's always nice when it's a good feeling. We should be detached, but it's always a good feeling when you get a sense that the students are understanding at least what's been discussed. So I appreciate that. This realization does not depend on having extensive Vedic knowledge or being born in a cultured family. We discussed this previously from the Nectar of Devotion, that birth, knowledge, varnashram, these are not criteria according to Srila Rupa Goswami. These are not criteria for bhakti. And so whenever somebody brings a criteria of birth, then there's room to challenge such a view. In every stage, devotional service is joyful. For example, simply by eating prasadam, one can make progress. Devotional service is eternally existing even after liberation. Mayavadi distinct devotional service is useful only up to the point of liberation, when they will become one with God. Remember that different types of Advaita philosophy, Parinamavada, Vivartavada, and so on. Actual devotional service begins after liberation. Brahma Buddha Prasanna Atmana Socha Dina Satmakangshati. Technically, according to Prabhupada here, we are not really, I mean, we are performing devotional service, but it's mixed devotional service, perhaps even karma yoga, according to some devotees. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me or conquer of enemies. Therefore, they never return to the path of birth and death. Now, I want us to read something here. Let's see. A few verses. Let's see. So you've already discussed this in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is 241. So if you want to read along, you can go there, 241. Prabhupada says, the very first statement in the purport, a strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasatmika intelligence. And then Prabhupada quotes a verse from the Madhya, and then he says, faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family, traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane. Again, when we say in Krishna consciousness, we mean pure devotional service, which means even beyond the Brahma Bhuta Prasanna, not the Mishra Bhakti. All activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. So there's the definition of faith by Srila Prabhupada. Faith means unflinching faith in something sublime. Here's another one from the Brahma Samhita. Where do I start reading? Let's see. Getting rid of, maybe I shouldn't start there. Okay, I'll start from the top. The purport. The function characterized by unalloyed devotion is the real function of all individual souls, jivas. All other variations of functions are activities of the external cases. Again, this is a Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport to the Brahma Samhita. I mean, you can follow along if you have this in your Veda base. This is Brahma Samhita 561. The function characterized by unalloyed devotion is a real function of all individual souls, jivas. All other varieties of functions are activities of the external cases. These exoteric and esoteric dharmas functions are ninefold, e.g., non-differential knowledge of the Brahman aiming at extinction of individuality, the Astanga Yoga Dharma having its goal attainment of the state of exclusive existence, Kaivalya, atheistical fruitive ritualism aiming at material enjoyment, Jnana Dharma seeking to combine knowledge with fruitive activity and the practice of the function of barren asceticism. Getting rid of all these serve me by pure devotion, rooted in faith. Exclusive faith in me is trust. Faith in the form of trust by the process of gradual purification tends to become a constant engagement, nishta, an object of liking, ruchi, of attachment, ashakti, and a real sentiment, bhava. The more transparent the faith, the greater the degree of realization. If you ask, how will the preservation and conduct of worldly affairs be feasible if one is continuously engaged in the endeavor for the realization of bhakti? What also will be the nature of the endeavor for the realization of bhakti when the body will perish consequent on the cessation of the function of the body and society? So anyway, to answer that question, the Lord says, this world subsists by the constant performance of certain activities. Fill all these activities with meditation of me. This will destroy the quality that makes those qualities appear as acts done by you. They will then be of the nature of my service, bhakti. So you infuse whatever you're doing. If whatever job that you are doing, you infuse some Krishna consciousness in it, and then it becomes devotional service. This is how you make your job into a devotional service. But so as long as you, as Bhakti Siddhanta is saying, as long as you keep your work and your devotional service separate, then it's a material activity. But notice something very interesting here. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's definition of faith is exclusive faith in me or in God is trust. And faith in the form of trust by the process of gradual purification tends to become so on in constant engagement and so on. What do you notice there? You see that the Prabhupada's definition that we read when we began, faith is trust in something sublime. He takes it directly from his spiritual master. Directly from the spiritual master. He just made it more contemporary. So this is Prabhupada's mood, that he never deviates from the mood, the examples, the purports, the teachings of the previous acharya. So that was that about faith. Let's read one more about faith and then so this is Srimad Bhagavatam 6:2, text 5 and 6. The text reads, people in general, so this is the text itself. People in general are not very advanced in knowledge by which to discriminate between religion and irreligion. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal, sleeping in peace with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. I.e., even in politics, we believe our president, this minister, we believe Trump, we believe Netanyahu, we believe Ramaphosa, we believe Tinubu, we believe these people will protect us. And Krishna says this, okay, let me read the whole thing. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal sleeping in peace with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. If a leader is actually kind-hearted and deserves to be the object of a living entity's fate, how can he punish or kill a foolish person who has fully surrendered in good faith and friendship? Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Sanskrit word Vishvata Gata refers to one who breaks faith or causes a breach of trust. The mass of people should always feel security because of the government's protection. Therefore, how regrettable it is for the government itself to cause a breach of trust and put the citizens in difficulty for political reasons. We actually saw during the partition days in India that although Hindus and Muslims were living together peacefully, Manipulation by politicians suddenly aroused feelings of hatred between them, and thus the Hindus and Muslims killed one another over politics. This is a sign of Kali Yuga. In this age, animals are kept nicely sheltered, completely confident that their masters will protect them. But unfortunately, as soon as the animals are fed, they are immediately sent for slaughterhouse. Such cruelty is condemned by Vaishnavas like the Vishnu Dutas. Indeed, the hellish conditions already described await the sinful man responsible for such suffering. One who betrays the confidence of a living entity who takes shelter of him in good faith, whether the living entity be a human being or an animal, is extremely sinful. I'll read that again. One who betrays the confidence of a living entity who takes shelter of him in good faith, whether that living entity be a human being or an animal, is extremely sinful, because such betrayal now go unpunished by the government. All of human society is terribly contaminated. The people of this age are therefore described as Manda Sumanda Matayu Manda Bhagya Hiupaduttaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.10. As a consequence of such sinfulness, men are condemned, Manda. Their intelligence is unclear, Sumanda Mataya. They are unfortunate, Manda Bhagya, and therefore they are always disturbed by many problems, Upaduttaha. This is their situation in this life, and after death, they are punished in hellish conditions. So that's what it says about trust and faith. What our Shastras say about trust and faith. And Prabhupada says in this purport, the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by the association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of the Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada describes the growth of faith. We've discussed this also probably with your previous teachers, beginning with Shraddha, Bhajana Kriya, Nishta, so on, up to Krishna Prema. So Prabhupada describes that after this. And Prabhupada says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed that when one becomes purified by the executing the process of devotional service that we've been discussing, especially by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from realized souls, then he can understand the signs of Krishna or the signs of God. Evam prasanamana. So I'm reading from the wrong verse actually. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, that's the part. And Prabhupada speaks about intelligence. He says, as far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service and has attained a stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional service or devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti or service to Krishna is the best course, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when one is in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. So again, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, so he's beyond happiness and distress. He's transcended that. So there's no question of fall down, as we've been discussing. One in the first class will surely make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam. And then I'll skip a few sentences. Faith in Krishna is also divided into 3 stages and described in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. First class attachment, second class attachment, and third class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. You can look it up at your own time. Those who have faith, who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it is simply eulogy, find the path very difficult. And if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service, even if they are supposedly engaged in devotional service, for them there is very little hope of gaining perfection. Thus, faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. In fact, everything begins with faith. Now, here's something very interesting and very important that Prabhupada touches on in the last part of his purport there. That faith is not only about non-devotees having faith in Krishna consciousness, but faith, and this was described to me by Gopipadanana Prabhu, who was my Shiksha Guru. I attended one of the Bhagavatam courses with him, that the I'm sorry, this one is coming from Ravinda Saru Prabhu, also. It's one of my Shiksha Gurus, one of my favorite devotees in ISKCON. And he was describing how, exactly as Prabhupada is saying here, that faith is not just about, as we call it, karmis, but faith is also about us as Vaishnavas, as devotees, or as aspiring devotees, because as I've been describing, Vaishnavism is very difficult. Prabhupada says himself, Vaishnavism is very difficult. It's not so easy. If it were that easy, anybody who takes to Krishna consciousness would be a pure devotee. But Krishna says it's Sudurlabha, or Rupa Goswami says it's Sudurlabha. Only a very, very few people can actually attain this. Krishna himself says, Yoginam Mapi Sarvesham, that verse, Yoginam Mapi Sarvesham, Yat Madgaten Anantarat. So in that verse. So actually pure devotional service is very, very rare, right? And so Ravindra Saru Prabhu was describing how, and I'll end with this, that the idea, you can see impersonalism in us as devotees, how we behave towards other devotees, how we behave towards the deities, how we behave towards Srila Prabhupada, right? For instance, I already spoke about this, how when it's time for deity greetings, we just come late, right? Even when Guru Puja is there, I made a big scene when I was in one of the temples. I made a very big scene about this because, I was coming for Guru Puja and I would be the only person there. Everybody else is where? Sleeping, scrolling TikTok. And I made a big scene because this is the founder Acharya. This is Srila Prabhupada. How dare you disrespect Srila Prabhupada in his own house? He's giving you accommodation, he's giving you food. I can understand the devotees that stay outside, they have to work and all of that. They have other responsibilities. I wasn't speaking to those devotees. But for temple residents, this is apara, this is offensive. They see Prabhupada not as a person. He's just a statue. They see the deity on the altar as a statue, because if you really saw Prabhupada as a person, if you really saw the deity as a person, you'd understand that Prabhupada is, we sing every morning, Mangalat, he's as good as Shastri, he's as good as God, he's good as Krishna. And what to speak if we don't give any respect to the deities, it's just deity. You see devotees, even during greetings, speaking about something, the song is playing on one side and other devotees are having darshan and people are having a little discussion. What am I driving at? This is an indication of faithlessness. You have no faith that Krishna is a person. You have no faith that the founder Acharya is a person. And so therefore you can behave irrespective of how you want to. You can behave anyhow you want. You can be sitting in japa chanting Hare Krishna, and when the curtains are open, other devotees are offering your obeisances. You don't bother standing up. You just put your head down, touch your forehead to the ground, and that's dasha. That's an expression of faithlessness. Ravinda Sarup Prabhu was describing this very beautifully, how religious people have this duplicity, this hypocrisy. I mean, everybody has it, but because he was specifically addressing the devotees, religious people have this hypocrisy, right? And this is largely influenced, and this is my purport and my take on it. This is largely influenced by our education system, because our education system is largely Greco-Roman, which means, and Greco-Roman is Western paradigm, right? And a Western paradigm is primarily very linear, right? Focus is mainly on measurements and all these different. I apologize, but I have to take a little time in speaking about this because it's important. So I'll take 2-3 more minutes and then I'll end. Right. So there's this hypocrisy that religious people have, that so this education system that we have, which is influenced by the Western world, and basically, I mean, nowadays, pretty much, maybe except in a few countries, all over the world, there's a standard accepted education. There may be variation according to country, region, but there's a standard education framework that everybody uses. And that framework is Western. Even the framework that we use to present our Shastra, the framework that I'm using, is Western. So what it means, therefore, is that our beliefs, everything about us is shaped by this Western education. And the Western education, by essence, doesn't believe in personhood. I mean, I discussed this in detail previously. In personhood. It's Mayavad philosophy that the soul is not a person. The soul is just like this light, this energy, whatever, different schools. So therefore, their approach to transcendence is a little different. It is impersonal. So when you see a devotee not give proper respects to the devotees, not give proper respects to Prabhupada, not give proper respects to the deities, this is where it's coming from, this impersonalism. So we have this impersonalism, this hypocrisy, that while we preach to other people, we go on book distribution, we go on Harinam, and we tell people about Krishna, that Krishna is God, but psychologically, we are impersonalists. Because if we're psychologically personalist, we would behave as personalists. We would behave in an appropriate way towards the deity, would behave appropriate way towards the devotees, we would behave appropriate way towards Srila Prabhupada. And not only that, we would be able to take that consciousness from the temple and take it out to the material world. But we fail in many instances like this. Like when we go on book distribution, right? We distribute a book to somebody, then they don't take a book. Many devotees, not everybody, they become angry and they insult people. This means that you don't see the person as a person, but you see them as, or Vaisheshika Prabhu would say, you don't see them as an Atma, but you see them as an ATM. From Atma to ATM. So this is the hypocrisy of religious people, that we tend to profess a belief in a personal God, but our behavior indicates a belief in an impersonal God. So this is what Krishna is speaking about in this text when he says that those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So we may think that Krishna is speaking about karmis or whatever, but he's also speaking about us. That unless we have faith in the deities and Krishna and Srila Prabhupada's teachings, then we are faithless. We may be wearing a dhoti and having tilak, but without this faith, faithless. And how do you show this faith? We've described. Prabhupada is given. This faith grows and grows and grows from Shraddha, all the way to Bhajana Kriya, Nishta, Ruchi, and all the way to. That's how it grows. And one way that this faith shows itself, manifests itself, is by happiness in Krishna consciousness. So this is the purpose of the Bhakti Shastras. This is the purpose of the Bhakti Shastras, so that we are able to see things even in their finest. So by this definition, and this is, we can discuss this some other time, but this is by definition what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking about when he says not all religious people are religious in the strictest term. Not all devotees are pure devotees. We are aspiring Vaishnavas. That we have to take, because Mahaprabhu, when he was speaking with the residents of Kulinagram, when they were asking him who's a Vaishnav, at first he says anybody who chants Hare Krishna once, anybody who, and then the second time, anybody who chants Hare Krishna constantly. The third time is anybody who by their mere presence induces others to chant Hare Krishna. That's a devotee. So he gave 3 different levels of devotees. So even if one is chanting and there may be contamination in the heart, they are still a devotees. But at the same time, according to Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Instruction, purport to text number 5, he says that we have to make this distinction. And these tools are not just meant for us to dissect other people's lives or fate and whatever, but it's also meant to dissect our own lives. So this is what Krishna is saying, faithlessness. So I'll end here, and because I've taken 10 minutes of your time, I will not take any questions. We will start the next session with with questions, if you have any. So you can write them down, and then we can end. So before I end, because I noticed that after I've hit the leave the session on Zoom, only after I hit it, I hear Chaitanya Prema Prabhu saying something, and I was like, oh my God, he was saying something, and I've left. So before I close off, I just want to see if Prabhu has something to say, and then we can end the class.
Thank you very much, Brother Vasu Prabhu. First of all, on behalf of the students and also on behalf of the management, we want to apologize for our inefficiencies in the matter of managing the platform.
Prabhuji, before you continue, Prabhuji,
Yeah.
before you continue, I want to say something. And I say this with all due respect. I say this with all due respect. And I mentioned this previously also. I gave this example. I mentioned, I think I gave this example also in my Bhagavatam classes in the temple you are in. I have an uncle who was, I mean, now he's doing better, who was a gambling addict. He was an addict, gambling addict. And, he was so addicted that he would, he would go gamble away money. And you know what he would say? You know what his favorite word was? Every time, just like any alcoholic or any addict, he would say, oh, I'm so sorry I made this mistake. I promise I will do better. I'll become a better person. And then they do the same thing again next week. And then, oh, I'm so sorry. And then people got fed up at some stage, even including myself. I said, like, and so we put a distance from him. So sometimes when we enable people to do the same mistakes over and over again, this is like compassion in the mode of ignorance. So at this stage, I don't know, when people say that we are sorry, it's more like a Davido song to me. Sorry, I just wanted to just jump in there. And I just say this respectfully.
That is true. That is true. But we are dealing with some uncontrollable environmental forces also. So that is why. Like the person managing the platform is Jamasami Mataji. and she's in Nigeria. And most of the time they suffer light out. And she doesn't have power banks and other things. So she like went to charge our phone somewhere and got distracted along the line and could not activate the platform on time. So that is why last class was delayed, and that was yesterday. In fact, myself, I got so upset, but when she explained,
let me just cut in there. The same thing happened last week, Prabhu.
yes.
The students were there, they waited for class. Raghupati and some others, I know Bhalabhadra Prabhu, they were there, and it didn't happen. So I think just as African people, one thing that we need to learn, I mean, and I'm saying this respectfully, with all due respect, we have to learn that when we try something and it doesn't work, let's try a different solution to the problem, and let's try not do the same things over and over. I mean, just in terms of practical application, if Janmastami is finding it difficult, for instance, like you said, because of lights and difficulties, which I understand. I mean, I've seen it, and we've also experienced it here in South Africa, load shedding. So I understand the dynamics of that. But so the in my mind, the proper thing to do would be to find a solution that would be that would work. Until maybe, let's say, she finds a suitable solution, then you find an admin. I mean, I mentioned also previously how I needed an admin always present on and you are here, of course, now on classes, but sometimes there's no admin, and I need to do some Zoom stuff. So just in terms of practical application and getting things done, I think when one path doesn't work, we need to adjust and see how we can do better. Otherwise, what happens is that we keep doing the same things over and hoping for things to be different. And this is by no means criticizing you and your team, but I'm just saying in terms of practical stuff. If this happens again next week, we get the same type of rationalization or excuse for it, and then the week after that, and then at some point, I have to be honest with you. At some point, I'm just going to just because to me, how I'm reading it is that even though there's a good reason for it, there's no seriousness. And like I said, I know for sure that if this session was conducted by Bhaktivedanta Damodar Maharaj or some illustrious Vaishnavas that you all hold in high regard, everything would be very timely. But because it's me, and then we have certain convictions about people, and because it's just Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, we see him every day, and he says certain things without any consequences, so it's just words. And this is why, as I always extend this discussion to the continent, this is why Africa will never grow as a continent. This is why, even though we have a lot of brilliant people, we will never grow as a continent. Even as a yatra, our yatras will always have difficulties with finances, with this and this, with politics, with all different types of stuff, because we don't look for different solutions. We keep doing the same things over and over and over, even though we get the same mistakes over and over again. This is the challenge. This is the difficulty with the black man. This is the difficulty with the African. And like I said, I'm extending it just from this discussion of the Bhakti Sastris to us as Africans in a whole. And because of this, the dream of having Krishna consciousness all around the world being the main, because if you remember, when you open the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said, one religion, one Shastra. That will never happen until we are all organized and moving in synergy. Look at how, I was speaking with one devotee who came to visit me from Mauritius. Look at how Mauritius is such a small continent, right? And Prabhupada said, he predicted that if Mauritians do things right, it'll be the first country in the world to become Krishna conscious. They still haven't done it. They're not nowhere near doing it. They're nowhere near doing it. Why? because they don't want to adjust also, right? They don't want to adjust. They become very comfortable in. So Mauritius is also, I mean, it's safe, like Ghana. It's a safe place, peaceful place, right? But it's not going to grow beyond, in terms of Krishna consciousness, beyond what it is. So in the same way with the continent, and I'm saying this with all due respect, and this is not directed at Chaitanya Prabhu. It's also directed at all of us, because it's not just Janmastami and Chaitanya Prabhu. If we really followed, because I know pretty much Africans are very culturally oriented. Even though as devotees, if we really were very culturally oriented, and in culture, in all African culture, the sense of community is always there. The sense of trying to help is always there. One of you would have raised their hand and said, Janmastami is having difficulty. While you are charging your phone, can I host this until you join in later? How can I help? But nobody has put their hand up to help Janmastami. She's always in anxiety, running here and running there and doing this. So these are the little smaller things that unless we work as a community, then, any teacher that comes here will leave, and then they'll speak with other teachers. And like Chaitanya Prabhu said, then it becomes a challenge. So I'm saying this with all respect, and I'm not trying to be, to put people down. But at the same time, I have to be practical about stuff. I've been a manager, run institutions and stuff like that. So I know how things work in terms of if you want results to things. So I'll end there, and I'll leave you to speak without interruption. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Practically, what we do is to try to get one more student to come on board to assist Jamasami in managing the platform. So we look for from among the students who is competent in this network stuff, managing internet stuff. So is there anyone among you who is good at this level of management, IT? Somebody who can open rooms, who can put devotees into different groups, open doors and bring them back. Somebody who is competent in doing that. Anyone among you? Because myself, I'm not very, I'm not very competent. I'm still trying to learn, and the facilities are also not good. The facilities that I have very, very down. Actually, it's one of the things. We are not being facilitated. We try to look for support, but facilities are not forthcoming. And since December, my computer broke down. I've been begging here and there, but nobody has come forward to support me. And I use the computer to set exams and all that, as if the service I'm doing is not appreciated. I'm on my own. I have to struggle for all the facilities by myself. So this uncooperative attitude on different levels, all levels, is actually affecting. And if we have devotees who have a particular competence, and it should be ready to come forward, because Jamasami, she was a student also, and she decided to help because she was good in some of those things. So she came forward, and we gave her that service. So among the students, is there anyone who can help to competently support Jamasami? Somebody who has some competence in
Because
IT.
we want to support Janmastami, we want to support her, and we don't want all the small mistakes to discourage her. But she needs help. She needs help because she calls me, she sends me messages and all of that. We're in discussion on the side, and she really needs to help. This is what bhakti means that we help each other. Otherwise, if she decides, like Chaitanya Prabhu saying she's a student, and if she decides that, okay, this is too much for me, I've got other services to do, then it becomes a bigger problem for Chaitanya Prabhu and the college. So we want to encourage it. This is the reason why I keep coming back. Otherwise, by right, I should have just left. But because I come back, because Janmastami always reaches out to me. She's always reaching, even if there's a mistake or whatever, she always reaches out to me, calls me, sends me messages and apologizes, which is a personal thing to do. When somebody sees they've made a mistake, they don't ignore it. They make contact. So I appreciate, so that I keep coming back because of her. This is the reason why. And even though yesterday we didn't have class, she contacted me. I came back again. I have no issue with her or this, I'm just trying to encourage her. But also some of you will have to step up. And then just in conclusion, Chaitanya Prabhu, when you were saying about you don't have support, I actually remember, oh, he's gone.
I'm there.
Oh, you're still here. Okay.
Yeah.
When you were saying about lack of support, I know. I've been there. I've been in the same shoes. And when I was Ministry of Education, I'm not going to reveal too much detail because now this is like a public platform. We can speak offline. But I'm just saying this in front of everybody so they can get some encouragement. So when I was the Minister of Education, I had a devotee, very popular devotee who runs an online university, a Vaishnav university. You can immediately know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say anything for now because we still have to explore this idea with Chaitanya Prabhu and stuff. So when I was speaking with this devotee, and he liked what I was doing and he's involved around the world and he's a very learned devotee. And also he wanted to get involved on the continent, right? And at the time I was associated with the Mayapur Institute. I'm still associated with the Mayapur. Actually, technically speaking, I am the Mayapur Institute representative in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't really done anything with this position. Padmanabhan Prabhu gave me this position, but I've never followed up on it or did anything with it because certain things have to align first and stuff. But anyway, that's a different discussion. So so I met with this devotee, different from MIT. Mayapur Institute, and so we came to visit South Africa. I invited him to come. He did some courses. He saw what we have, and he said to me, Prabhu, I travel around the world, and I have so much donations from devotees that like what I'm doing. Why don't we start a college here in South Africa? Right? You have you have the facilities and nice places and all of that. I was inspired. We discussed it and we took it to the GBC. We took it to the South African National Council and they shut it down. And they said every temple has, their own education system, this and that. And, there was a whole lot of things. I'm speaking openly with all of you about this. There was a whole lot of challenges to this. And I said, okay, there is Mayapur Institute. There's many. There's the Bhaktivedanta College of Education. And, so there's different systems. And they didn't want one particular system given preference in a temple, which I understood. If you have base, let's say if you have base, and then you have three other institutions, and then you use base as, as the main thing, other ones will feel an issue. So I understood. So I discussed with this devotee, and we decided, okay, we have the money. He has the money, not me. He says, I have the money. I will, with your help as the Minister of Education, I will buy property in South Africa and I will build a college, or I'll build a building and then turn it into a college. And this way is still a part of ISKCON, controlled by ISKCON Education Ministry, but it is not based in any temple because of the politics that Chaitanya Prabhu was saying. So we agreed on this, but anyway, political bureaucracy, it never happened. And I, eventually, after some years, I stepped down from education to focus on preaching. And then, let's see, actually, I just want to see the message itself. I'll see if it's Suchi enough for me to read it for you. I will try and censor it. First, I'll see when it was sent. Let's see. It's from a Swami, a good friend of mine. So it's a voice message and a text message. I'm not going to read the voice message because you're going to know who is speaking. So I'm not going to read it, but it's from a Swami, ISKCON Swami. He says, after sending the voice message, he sends the message. He says, Dear Vrajabasi Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance, or Lord Srila Prabhupada, hoping that you're keeping well. And he says, is this something you would be interested in heading up? I think it's a great collaboration for boosting the much needed education infrastructure in South Africa. And there's a whole lot of things, that's personal stuff that we discussed that I'm not going to say. So what was the request? What was this request? The same request that I got when I was a Minister of Education. That was the essence of the... I'm sorry I'm taking too much time, but this is important. It's the same request that I had from the same devotee that I had the same discussion with when I was a Minister of Education. And so what was my response to the Swami? I told him, no thanks. No thanks. Find somebody else. Not interested. Was disappointed, of course. Right? And I mean, that was a long time ago. Let's see, when he sent the message in the 25th of November, 2025. Last year, November. It's March. Nothing has been done about it. Right? And this is a South African yet. Now I'm thinking, after what you've just said, that maybe I can ask this devotee if they can do something with you in West Africa. Maybe even get a building. It's not an independent thing. It's run by the education ministry. And in this way, you'll have a space where, a dedicated space for education. You don't have to worry about rent. All you have to worry about is getting students and the teaching. And this devotee can get it done because he has the money. And again, it's not an independent ISKCON project. It's run completely by ISKCON. You are just like the manager of it. I'll give you another example. In South Africa, Food for Life operates differently from many places in the world. In South Africa, Food for Life has been registered as a separate entity. It's not run by ISKCON temple presidents. Food for Life in South Africa is registered separate entity from ISKCON entity, but it is run by ISKCON. So the directors are appointed by the GBC, by ISKCON. It follows and honors GBC rules, GBC laws. But it operates differently in the sense that pretty much every Food for Life center, every Food for Life has its own center outside of ISKCON temples. So they have their own little Food for Life centers. They cook. They invite people to come and collect prasadam. Devotees come also. They go on Harinam, and they'll say, let's say in South Africa, you have Food for Life Sandton. They have their own space. You have Food for Life Cape Town. They have their own space. Food for Life Durban. They have their own space. In some places, the same Food for Life is in the temple, but it's very rare. And why did it happen like this? Because of the problems that Chaitanya Prema Prabhu is speaking about. The challenges that you're speaking about, where, and it's not the fault of the temple president usually. Temple president have a lot on their hands. It's difficult to manage so many things, and it's not their fault. And so because they felt they were not supported, and money that was meant to be used for feeding program went to paying the rent, and and the donors were complaining, and so this is how it ended up. And initially it was a big problem. Oh, Food for Life is trying to be independent, but now it's an accepted norm. Nobody says anything. And also, this is another development that I'm just going to share, and then I'll end with this, that in South Africa, preaching is no longer the sole proprietorship of temples. Devotees, householders, they have their own namahatas, they run their own feeding programs, they go on their own food harinams, they do their own preaching programs without relying on temple presidents because of some of the challenges that are mentioned that Chaitanya Prabhu said, that sometimes, the rules sometimes are so hard that they make difficult for householders to do their own thing. And sometimes if you are a seasoned householder, you've been around in ISKCON for so many years, and then you have a temple president that has like 5 years, and then he's trying to tell you what to do. It's like, nah, I don't think I'm going to do that. You are still young in your devotional service, young in your years. I'm much more experienced, so I'd rather do my own thing. So these are some of the dynamics that are happening. So I'm saying this publicly here because in our Bhakti Sastri studies, I mentioned that we are discussing principles and ideas in a Shastric way. And we also see how they apply in our own lives, in ISKCON as an institution, in our preaching and so forth. So all these things are not politics or trying to blame anybody, but it's just trying to see things from a practical operational point of view and how it affects preaching in Krishna consciousness. And I want the same thing that Chaitanya Prabhu wants. And this is why I'm supporting him. I want education to increase on the continent, in West Africa. And the only way that can be done is through support. And so this is my my thinking, Chaitanya Prabhu. We don't have to discuss it here. We can have a conversation offline. And I apologize for making you uncomfortable by speaking some things that may have made you feel uncomfortable as the chairperson.
No problem.
But unfortunately, I have to say these things.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. We know we are not perfect. We are just trying to make the best use of whatever is in the environment. So I thank you for pointing it out, and we will really become more attentive to it. And also, we want to thank you once again for not giving up on us despite all those lapses. And we will try to do better. Luckily, I think Kavikanapura is great. Kavikanapura is also there. Ireland is coming back to West Africa. So we are going to discuss more on how we can really manage this platform more effectively. So yes, we'll work on it and improve. We will surely get one person to support Yaman Sami also. Then Kavikanapura himself will also show me how to do it myself too. Then I will also learn how to be activating the platform for classes too. And all of that things will be added. Thank you very much, Jai.
And thank you for your wonderful service, and thank you who's stayed to the end so far. I know I took 30 minutes of your 30 minutes of your time, but I think this was an important discussion. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was an important discussion, and have a nice weekend. And Chaitanya Prabhu, because I don't want this to come across as Vrajbashi is putting his nose in West African business.
No.
If you want or are interested in what I've been discussing in terms of getting some type of support in West Africa, you'll have to either call me or send a message, Prabhu, that says, Prabhu, can we discuss this, so that I have like some type of proof in the future, and says, if they say, no, it was Vrajbasi, he pushed. And I said, no, he's the one who asked me. See, here's the message. He said, Vrajbasi, can we talk about it? Here's a voice message here. So I'm not going to bring it up until you reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you, Prabhu.